This week, I want to deal with the enemy of doubt. And we all deal with doubt. And one of the reasons I want to talk about doubt is because I want to give some insight into why I started this podcast. It was really because of a strong part was because of doubt. Years ago, I had heard this pastor, I believe he's up in the Maryland area. He had asked a very poignant question. And so that's the question that I want to ask you all this morning. And that question is this: when was the last time you did something for the first time? I'm going to ask that again. I want you to really think about this as I read this question to you. When was the last time you did something for the first time? When I was faced with this question, it hit me square in the face because I realized that at that time, it had been a long time since I had done something for the first time. And so that question really speaks to a number of things. It speaks to expectation. At that particular time, I hadn't done very much, just in the way of, marriage and raising children and family and career. You can just really, really get into a rut of doing life and not necessarily stepping out, not necessarily getting involved in new things, but still maintaining life and living life. But when the question came to me, it really just made me contemplate and think about my life. And yes, I had some desires at the time, but I really had not acted on doing very much to get the desires or to bring those desires to pass. And so doubt had crept in. And really what it amounted to was the sharp edge of my expectation. I allowed it to get dull. There's a scripture in Luke chapter 21 and verse 34, reading in the Message Bible. It says, "Don't let the sharp edge of your expectation get dull." And so that's where I was. And I'm sure as I'm talking right now, there are a lot of men out there. You have allowed, and it might be through life, it might be through some other circumstances, but you have allowed your sharp edge of expectation to get dull. Think about when your expectation was sharp. What happened? You didn't procrastinate. You were quick to do certain things. You just moved. Some of you moved at the speed of light. And here you are now in the phase of life that you're in right now. Because of circumstances, you've allowed that sharp edge to get dull. It's like a butter knife trying to cut a steak. It's ineffective. And so I want to talk about that. There's another scripture that says, and I think this scripture is in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. But if charge my head if I'm wrong, but it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding." And I really believe a lot of men, because they are because they're not trusting in the Lord, because they are leaning unto their own understanding, their confidence and their doubt is low because things have not happened in your life the way that you expected them to, simply because there's no trust, there's no confidence in the one that can make things happen in your life. And so because of that, you are now in a position where you are leaning to your own understanding. And because you aren't moving, you are plagued with what I call the paralysis of analysis. That's something that happens in all of our lives at some point in time. We are affected by the paralysis of analysis, and that stops all movement in our life. The enemy of debt has taken such a hold on us that we've just ceased from doing anything. And I'm not saying we have to blindly get involved in things or do things very quickly. There is a scripture in Proverbs that says that we should be counting the cost. We should be evaluating things before we get into them. But sometimes that evaluation and that analysis can cause you not to move at all. So as we think about moving forward in life, I want you to think about this and consider this as you go into this week. Not necessarily thinking about yourself. In fact, you're putting yourself second, not first, but second. There's a scripture in Romans chapter 12 and verse 10 from the Message Bible, and it says, "Be good friends who love deeply. Practice playing second fiddle." Practice playing second fiddle. And so I want to tell a story. Years ago, my son and I, we were living in San Diego at the time. We had gone to a Padres game, and we went with a gentleman and his son. So it was the four of us, my son, me, my son, the other gentleman and his son, went to a Padres game. And so as we're sitting there, the game hadn't even started yet. We're just sitting there waiting for the game to start. And so this gentleman, I could see, I was sitting on the end of a row, and this gentleman is walking up the stairs, and I can see him walking up. And so as he comes up, he kind of gets close to my side and where I'm sitting, and he looks at me and he hands me 4 tickets, and he says, "I have some seats down there, but I have to leave. I can't stay. We've got to go. And so feel free to take those seats." And so I looked at the other gentleman, and we just got up. We went down to the lower part. It turns out we were in the very first and second rows of the stadium, right behind third base. And so as we're walking down, I look at the tickets. We walk down. The lady, we see the lady, and she instructs us to come on. She wants to see the tickets. And so as we walk in, there are 2 seats on the first row. There are 2 seats on the second row. And so as we go to our seats, I immediately, without even thinking about it, I hand 2 tickets to the front row to the gentleman, and him and his son go sit on the front row, and me and my son take the second row. And without even thinking about that, that's something that I just did because I want to go back to this scripture. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding." If I had just been focused on me, myself, and my son, I would have easily taken that front row and just let the other gentleman sit behind us. Because sure enough, as we're sitting there watching the game is happening. After the inning and the player from the other team gets an out, he comes right up to where we are walking as he goes back to the dugout, and he throws a ball to the other son's the gentleman that we went with. He throws a ball to his son, so his son caught the ball. It was a great moment. And so we were all happy that happened for him. But if I had been so focused on myself and what I wanted to have happen, I would have easily taken those first 2 seats. But because I was trusting in the Lord, I was not leaning to my own understanding, I had total confidence that even in a situation like this, that God would take care of us. And so sometimes you can't be so focused on self, because what that's going to do is that's going to make you lean to your own understanding. And it is going to cause you to doubt God's ability to take care of you in any situation that you may be facing in life. But because, man, I was so locked in, because I was trusting God every step of the way at that particular time in my life, I still am. But that was the example that I thought about as I thought about this message of doubt. I was so locked in with trusting God that the act of practicing playing second fiddle was not a problem for me. And so there was nothing in me that desired someone else's good above my good above someone else's. And so God, at the end, I'm telling you, he is so good, because before we left that game, My son also got a ball thrown his way. And so it was just a great day for us. We obviously were highly favored because these were even different types of seats that we were in. They were not the regular bench seats. And so God favored us all around. I have no idea who that gentleman was, but he placed those tickets in my hand and really blessed us that particular time. So as you go into this week, brother, I really encourage you. One way to deal with doubt is don't focus on yourself so much. Practice playing second fiddle. Do something for someone else. As the scripture says, be good friends who love deeply. And there's no way you can be a good friend when you're selfish. There's no way you can love deeply when you're selfish. Be a good friend who loves deeply. Practice playing second fiddle. So here we go. Man, crush Monday.